Today we're going to traverse into the Tree of Life and our chakra system. What really spurred me to talk about this is I'm in a Master Herbalism program igniting the doctor aspect of the Druidic lineage, and this is not the doctor we talked about today in our culture, but what we were speaking to in my classes is alchemy. Here's the cool thing about the word alchemy. It is one of my favorite words. And the reason it's one of my favorite words is because what it means at its core is the separation of the impure from the pure substance. So the idea of alchemy is to purify a substance's energies. In this time of transition of the fourth density, we have to do the same thing. This is why the Tree of Life and the chakra system is where I'm going with this conversation today. Now, in the original framework for doing alchemy using plants, it's a combination of working with astrology, or as I would actually say, cosmology, and it's often used is Kabbalah Tree of Life. And then the third aspect is doing lab work. And the interesting thing about the astrology component is it actually uses the moon, as much astrology does, which I also don't want to use, and that's another video for another time. But the other component is that it's using Kabbalah. Now, I actually got into Kabbalah a long time ago for a brief moment in time. It was like maybe a couple months. Because I was actually on a journey 20 years ago in my mid-20s thinking about all the different ways, all the spiritual avenues, because the whole New Age spiritual thing was like gross to me and I didn't like it at all. And I knew it was not right and I didn't resonate with that. And lo and behold, the New Age whole spiritual thing was actually created by what I call the evil ones. So the evil ones, by the way, the root meaning of the word evil means cruel. And so we're talking about cruel beings that don't want love light to be, they don't want humanity to rise, they don't want divine love coming in, but they can't stop it. However, what we have now is systems that are based on some of these teachings. This is a picture of the 10-base Tree of Life system that Kabbalah has been based on. And unfortunately, we can't use that anymore. So what we need to move into is a 12-base system. Now, why is this? You've heard of fallen angels, and there's some truth to this. What has transpired is you have a being that had a lot of information. So Thoth is this being. And this being and other beings basically stole the Emerald Founder records. This is information on how our entire system was built, meaning the energetics, the framework of how the metaphysical aspects, how matter is being created. We're also talking about Terra and Gaia timelines. We're living in an eternal now. And so the information that was stolen from the Emerald Founder records, these are basically the cosmic Christos dragon teachings. And these teachings are the framework of everything about our universe and how it works. And so if we think about this as, if we put it in today's construct, you have a company and the CEO starts fighting with another C-level executive and they start battling it out, and then one gets like, why are you doing this? Why are you helping them so much? Why are you creating this whole race of beings that are going to be so amazing and so magnificent, and it's also magical? Why would you do this? That's it, I'm leaving. They war and they battle, and then Thoth, the CFO of the company, says, I'm out, I'm starting my own thing. So what they did is they take the framework of our universe and they build an inversion of it. and they block and build matrices using their technology, which we could actually say is AI, and they build a whole layer of a matrix that is not real, that's a falsity. So then they took all the teachings, such as the Tree of Life, which is a 12 base, or the original creation blueprint is a base of 12. We should be using base 12 math. We should be using a base of 12 grid in our energetic bodies, and working with that system, because we originally had 12, because human had 12 strands of DNA, not 10. It was after genetic warfare on humanity when basically the 2 strands that were given by the founder races, the beautiful beings that wanted to create this amazing humanity race, the DNA has been hindered. And so this is a really fast. And so then what we got left with is a 10 base system when it's actually a 12 base grid system. And this is really, really vital and critical for us to get, because that means the systems that are based on this old framework aren't correct. And so the way that we can actually correct it is by just realizing that we need to change the way that we're working with things. So, for example, in my alchemy workings and preparing for alchemy workings in the construct that we know, at least that we have access to, I'm going to have to create a framework that takes the moon out of the equation, and I'll get to that in another video, and also takes this 10 base system out, not using Kabbalah, but actually using a 12 base system. And so I'm going to have to remember through awakening within me of how to do that. And perhaps on my research rabbit holes, there's a lot of information that comes in that actually pisses a lot of people off. And you have to be like, well, I don't understand. Am I angry that these beings, these negative, evil beings, did all of this to humanity? Yeah. I mean, yeah. Not only a big yeah, but I mean, we need to sometimes get really fired up about this. Really fired up. Like, how can they do this to beautiful humanity, to creation? How can they do this? Okay. Then we get to compose ourselves. I always think it's good to let the frustrations out, and then we come back in. But here's the thing. They can't stop the truth, because it lives in the Indigos and the Starseeds awakening with this information. It lives in our DNA. So I didn't even know anyone else who was talking about this until I went on a journey, and I was like, well, I found a couple of people talking about it. So the information, you can't stop truth. And so you have the artificial system that was created. So getting into the dismantling of the old systems and letting go the old systems is actually why this information that I'm going through with the 12 grid tree and the chakra system and going through this is really vital. I only found one place that really had a powerful image of how it lays on the human body, because again, this is multidimensional. So forget this 2D structure. We're looking at how these energetic layers work in the frameworks of not only the matter in our body, but also how that responds and interacts with the world around us, with the divine, and with Earth, or as the consciousness, as I would say, is Gaia. And we need to remember that we are a system. Look, I mean, this is another great picture, because I'm also learning the very ancient healing from many different disciplines. I'm learning the First Nations peoples medicine, and I'm learning Ayurvedic medicine, and I'm learning traditional Chinese medicine. I'm also learning the Celtic Druid medicine, the ancient medicine of Europe. And when you're learning all of these different ways, you can start seeing the threads of truth that weave in them all. And that is the most beautiful framework. And the framework is that we have to work in the energetic way not only with the plants, but of the human body and animal bodies. I'm pointing to my doggy that's over there. So the human bodies and how we need to dig into these energetic centers. The tree of life and knowing how that layers onto the body and how it works with the chakra system is very important. For example, the second sphere, this is actually the root chakra, right? And this is the universal 12 tree grid. What you can see is we're actually working with dimensions. So as anybody that's called to this video, you know about chakras, but we have to remember that these are multidimensional. They're multidimensional in a way that they interact with all things around us. They interact with other densities, other dimensions of consciousness, but they're also very much attached to the organs in our body. And so what's really amazing work is to figure out, and this is part of the work that I do in Disrupt Now, is helping people dissolve the old to awaken the new. And part of that process is remembering that we have to let go of the emotions and the things that get blocked and locked in these energy centers. And we have to really realize this even more so because we are dealing with the dismantling of an entire system by these evil beings that do not want us to thrive, nor break away and break out of their illusionary matrix. Because the reality of reality in this experience is far more magnificent and beautiful without them involved. So as we break more and more through this, we have to really remember our human anatomy, and we have to look at the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, and all the subtle bodies. When we're doing healing work, we cannot just work on metaphysical. We have to think about the physical aspect, even though underneath all things is what? Energy. So we're dealing with energy no matter what, but there's a physicality to matter that responds differently to specific purifying processes, letting go of emotions, seeing and peering in to the unseen spaces so that we can know where we're blocked. And that is part of my work in Disrupt Now, is seeing what is not seen. Because these evil beings want you to do is be stuck in the lower three chakras, which is what in the tree of life we're working in this lower dimensions, the first, second, and third dimensions. They don't want you to access fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensions. We have to really work with what do we need to let go of, what do we need to dissolve, so that we can awaken the new, really bring in the magic that isn't exactly new. It's actually just the framework of original creation, the blueprint of the original creation of our realm, of our universe, of this experience, and get back into that truth. What I would love to leave this video with today is thinking about working more and more with your hairline, which is the tube, as we can say, that runs in the middle of the body. So women are doing so the womb is where the lower three chakras are. The hera is actually what men can work with. And so the energetic visual of this is not only looking at cleansing your chakras and purifying that of the hairline, or what I like to call is the divine tube, but it's also working in these chakras deeper and consistently, because they want to keep us trapped in the lower three. There's other reasons for this, which I won't get into in an in-depth way because I could go on forever. But as far as the poisons being released in our realm, the truth of that is because they want to poison the waters in our body. As such, they are doing in the earth. They want to poison the air that we breathe, the air in this realm, and they want to poison the food that's going in our mouth, because they need to get us stuck in the physicality and stuck in these lower chakras. We have to really think about our body in this multidimensional way, with working with all the energies, but start paying attention to where you're blocked. start feeling into the emotions of each of these centers and really thinking about how you can start moving into other dimensional constructs, because really the chakras are stargates into a higher dimensional consciousness that we can access. And when I say we, I mean humanity. But to get there, it is required that there's a lot of purifying and cleansing that needs to be done because of the evil ones that have taken over and hijacked this beautiful, amazing, wonderful earth. And so if we can get back to these truths and not shoot the messengers, but instead embrace the new information and how we can take it into our own framework, into our homes, then this will actually help us move through this time. My mission, Disrupt Now, is because we do need to disrupt now. We need to let go of the status quo because it has never served us, because status quo is patriarchy, and we are done with the old systems. We need to dissolve that away and to step into this new awakening of this magic that is the true underlying magic that lies original creation of this entire universe and many other universes as well.